Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a wonderful week here at the Duck Zone. I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving, and we're watching a lot of football this past weekend. A lot has happened. We are going into week 14 of the NFL season, and can you believe it? We are in championship week in the college football season, but we will be getting to that soon. James, I'll be giving you the platform right now. We got some stuff to talk about from week 13. Let's jump right on into it.
Yeah, so I jumped the gun a little last week. I think we kind of both mentioned that we are going to split the show up. Next week, we'll split the show up. We'll have two separate NFL and college football shows. Well, maybe not next week. I guess we could. We'll have to talk about that because we have the Army Navy game and then the bowls. So,
Yeah.
anyways, the point I'm getting at, we'll be splitting up the show. So, yeah, stay tuned for a fully NFL and a fully college football week from here on out. Or show, fully college football, fully NFL show. All right, with that being said, I'll hop into my little notes. Uh, we started off on Thanksgiving Day with the Bears having an opportunity to win, and they completely flubbed that completely. They did not handle that well at all. I mean, that was kind of the talk of Thanksgiving is why didn't Eberflus call a timeout? And then we saw the next day he got fired. So, sorry, Eberflus, but I don't know if you're 10 years a head coach. He might not ever get a job after what he's done with the Bears. I mean, he doesn't seem fit. Moving on in Thanksgiving, we saw the Cowboys pull off a win. I don't think it's really that big of a deal. They beat the Giants in a divisional matchup. Cowboys still suck. Cooper Rush actually hurt his ankle, so we might even see Trey Lance this week, which would be interesting. And then our nightcap was the Dolphins and Packers, and unfortunately the Dolphins just, that narrative of Tua not being able to play in cold weather continues on. The Dolphins just can't win in the cold. Moving then on to the Friday game, we saw the Chiefs chief again against the Raiders. Yeah, 11-1. That team is so interesting to me. They're not. They're like a top 5 team, but they're probably the 5th best team in the NFL. And then on Sunday, oh man, I don't even like talking about this. We saw the Vikings rally past the Cardinals. I was so excited for that game, especially come the fourth quarter. I thought we had that in the bag. But the Cardinals, on a semi-controversial fourth down, kicked the field goal, which then led to the Vikings driving down and winning the game. I guess Kyler did have a shot, but threw a pick, in the waning minute. We saw the Steelers prevail in a shootout. That was a incredible game by Russell Wilson. We saw a so we saw Russell Wilson play very well. We saw Kirk Cousins play one of probably the worst quarterback games I've ever seen. I didn't watch the game. I saw the highlights, but holy cow, he was really bad. And there's people, a lot of Falcons fans are chiming for Penix, so that era could come sooner rather than later. Staying on the topic of quarterbacks, we saw the Jags lose again, and not only did they lose the game, but they lost their quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, to a pretty nasty hit by safety Al Shazier. So Al Aziz. I'm going to flub it, so I'm not going to say his name. Anyways, he got suspended 3 games. We saw the Commanders break back out. Jaden Daniels is back on top, winning games. We saw an Eagles team pull off a pretty good win. And I shouldn't say a pretty good win. A very good win against the Ravens. And I am kind of questioning what's going on with Justin Tucker. He has been the probably the greatest kicker of all time, and definitely in terms of field goal percentage, and that's kind of fluctuated just in these last couple weeks. I mean, so I don't know what's going on with him, but he's not looking automatic like he has been his whole career. The Bills rolled in the snow. The 49ers lost CMC for the year, and I'm pretty sure their season's about over. Jordan Mason also got put on IR, so that team is just on life support. They literally cannot catch a break, it seems. Yeah, there were some off the field issues with one of their linemen. I'm not going to get into that, but it's getting to the point where it's like nothing in San Francisco seems to be going right. And on Monday, we had a hell of a Monday Night Football shootout. The Broncos prevailed. Jameis had his most Jameis game ever, throwing for 300, 400 plus yards, a couple of touchdowns, maybe 3 touchdowns, but then multiple picks. He's the modern day dictionary picture of what you look up when you search gunslinger. I mean, the guy, he doesn't care. He's gonna sling it around. He doesn't care if he throws picks. But Sean, I know you had a comment, so
Yeah, one of
yeah.
the funniest
What do you have to say about that Broncos Browns Monday night game?
one of the funniest stat lines. He throws for just under 500 yards, 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Two of the interceptions were returned for a touchdown. He threw the ball 58 times. But that said,
Wow.
Cleveland is turning into one of these teams where we talked about it months ago almost. How they should have turned this thing over from Deshaun Watson to um, Jameis much earlier. This is a
James.
much better, yeah, it's a much better offense. I'm not saying Jameis is perfect, but I mean at least the team has life, and them being 3-9, I think it is now. They're a scary 3-9 team. They're a team you don't really want to face because I mean they gave Denver everything they had. Denver had to take 2 interceptions back to the house to win that game. I mean, and it was fun to see. Definitely in the game, I didn't expect it. You get 2 70+ touchdowns in back-to-back plays. That doesn't happen a lot. It was just kind of a fun watch. So
Yeah, kind of a revenge game for Jerry Jeudy. I know they didn't prevail, so I don't know if you can call it a revenge game since the team he was on lost, but
yeah,
he did everything he could,
yeah,
and he was getting booed like crazy by Broncos
yeah.
fans. That
He
was
was.
funny, and he was giving them, like the
Mhm.
ear, give it to me, and I
Yeah.
like that. I thought that was awesome.
But yeah, it's fun. As I said, I think Cleveland's going to be a fun team to watch this year, and they've got a lot of dog in them. That coach there, he won the coach of the year last year. I mean, he shouldn't get fired. I mean, he's getting everything he possibly can out of this team, and the Deshaun Watson thing is not his fault. That was all management, the stupid contract. Um, I heard something crazy, and then we'll jump into the Week 14. Let's see if I can say this right. Deshaun Watson is, if you take his what he's made money wise for the amount of passing yards he has in his career, he has the most yards thrown per dollar, or the third most yards per dollar for a quarterback in NFL history.
I'm
Oh,
trying to like
bad.
understand that in my brain. So is that good or bad?
Bad. It's bad. So it means
Okay, that's what I was thinking. I was
it comes out to like for every yard he has thrown, he's made like $7,000.
no,
Bad.
yeah, he was way overpaid.
Yeah, it's bad. Like Chase Daniels was number one on that list, and he's in his career made like 23,000 a yard, but he was a
Okay.
career backup. So, but that said, I hope I said that right. But that said, let's jump to Week 14. We got 13 games on the slate. I think this is, in my opinion, we got a few pretty good games, but this is actually probably the weakest slate of the year. A couple competitive matchups, but we're getting late in the season. You got some teams that are kind of out of it, but we'll go through it. And we're starting off with a great one. In my opinion, one of the better matchups of Week 14 on Thursday night. You're going to want to watch this one. Green Bay going to Detroit, playing the Lions. Both these teams played on Thursday night. Detroit is kind of banged up for the first time this year. That defense is a little banged up. That said, it's hard to bet against them. Who do you got?
Yeah, I'm not betting against them. I got the Lions, and mainly, I mean, the one of the main reasons is just because they're the home team. If this was in Green Bay, I'd probably pick Green Bay, but the Lions are at home. They'll have that crowd will be rocking. Yeah, they're like you said, they're a tough team to bet against. I'm curious though if they're I don't want to say they're peaking at the wrong time, but it's almost like
Yeah.
things have gone too well for them. Not saying they need to purposely lose a game, but sometimes, you can take a lot out of a loss. So if they do lose this game, I don't think it's that big of a deal. One, they just have such a large lead in the division already, but you know, well, I guess if they keep winning
I
too, then they can sit
yeah.
their players the last couple weeks. But you can always take more from a loss than a win. Not to say that you ever should try to lose, but um, yeah, I think the offense will just be too much for the Packers. So I like the Lions at home.
Yeah, I like the Lions as well. I'm going to take them. I've got kind of the same concern that you mentioned. Or is this team peaking at the wrong time? They losing guys on the defense side of the ball that they need in January. I mean, I'll take the Lions, but I am getting a little bit concerned that they may have peaked too early. But who knows? Um, we'll move this Sunday. We're going to deal with kind of two of the bottom feeders of the South here. Jacksonville heading to Tennessee.
I like the Titans here. Again, same reason they're at home. The home crowd always helps. I feel like give you a little bit more juice. And their quarterback's healthy. The Jaguars won't have Trevor Lawrence. Not that maybe that's a huge. I mean, Mac Jones has been okay, but the Titans, when they are clicking, have actually looked okay offensively. Jaguars have just had a rough year, so I like the Titans at home.
I was going to say pretty much the same thing. I'm going to take Tennessee. When that offense is clicked, it's clicked. Jets going to Miami. Who do you got here?
I like the Dolphins. They're going to rebound. They're back in hot, humid Florida, and the Jets are a mess.
Yeah.
This maybe could be Rodgers' last game starting, or they just continue starting him knowing that they're going to lose, and maybe they figure that's their best opportunity to lose with Rodgers at the helm, and they can probably go after a veteran quarterback or maybe something in the draft. I don't even know where you go from. I mean, you have to go for a veteran, I would think, just with the receiving core they have and Brees Hall. I mean, you kind of have to. They're in that win now mode, but Rodgers isn't getting them the wins. So, yeah, I don't know. They're in a tough spot, but I like the Dolphins at home.
Yeah, I got the Dolphins. I got nothing to add there. Atlanta heading up to Minnesota. I think this is going to be a pretty good matchup. Kirk Cousins, as long as he's still the quarterback, revenge game.
Yeah, I don't think he can play any worse than he did last week. Unfortunately, I just haven't seen it out of Kirk that much this year compared to Darnold and the Vikings. So I'm taking the Vikings at home.
Yeah, I like Minnesota as well. I want to take Atlanta, but just these last few weeks with Atlanta, they're a tough team to pick right now. Minnesota defensively, when they're on, they're on, and you know Minnesota's only lost a good team, so I just don't see them losing at home to Atlanta. I don't see it happening. Um, Two more teams kind of struggling. New Orleans heading to the Giants.
I like the Saints on the road. Giants again, starting Tommy DeVito, and he didn't really show me much. The Giants are definitely in tank mode. They need a new quarterback of the future, whether that's Carson Beck, Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, who knows. But I don't like them at all. I like the Saints on the road.
Yeah, I'm taking the Saints. Nothing to add there. Probably the most lopsided game of the week. Carolina, who has shown some fight, taking on Philadelphia. Philadelphia's hot. They've won 8 in a row now. Who do you got here?
I like the Eagles pretty handedly. I think the Panthers are definitely a team to keep an eye on, though. I mean, their young guys are playing really well. So, honestly, for Tepper, the owner, you couldn't really ask for anything better than a competitive team that's losing. The fans are into it. You got Bryce Young back at quarterback, and he actually looks like a decent quarterback now. Unfortunately, it took Andy Dalton in a car accident to get him back into starting. But talk about a team that maybe the youth movement will be the right movement, and they'll probably still get a really good pick in the next draft. So, fortunately, I don't think they can squeeze this one out. Eagles are going to win this one at home.
Yeah, I think Philly wins this one pretty comfortably, but all the things you said about Carolina, very true. Rematch from a couple weeks ago, which was a great matchup in the snow. Cleveland heading to Pittsburgh. Cleveland stole that game the first time around. Will they do the same?
I think that Steelers defense will be a little too much for Jameis. Jameis, like I said, he's a gunslinger. Expect it. If you're a betting person, put some money down on 1+ interception because Jameis will throw one interception. I think the Steelers' defense, like I said, is just going to be too much for him. So I like the Steelers at home. And don't sleep on their offense because Russell Wilson had them humming this past week.
Yeah. I'm going to take the Steelers as well. Amazing stat, and I hope I get this right. I don't know if I get this right or not, but I think I saw on the broadcast last week Pittsburgh had clinched a winning season again, making it 21 straight seasons with a winning record. That's crazy.
Oh, wow.
I mean, Mike Tomlin, I know this for a fact. Mike Tomlin's never had a losing season in Pittsburgh. It's crazy.
I have heard that. That's pretty incredible.
I mean, it's nuts. But they continue that on, and they're a team you don't want to face the playoffs at this point. I mean, they look really good. Las Vegas heading down to Tampa Bay. Who do you got here?
I like the Bucs at home. The Raiders they're just one of those teams. They haven't shown me much. I know they had an opportunity to win against Kansas City, but overall, that Raiders. I mean, with Aiden O'Connell at quarterback, and I mean, Christ, they had Amir Abdullah. That's a name I haven't even thought about in years, and he was the starting running back. You're not going to move the ball that much when you have those guys in your backfield. So I'm going with the Fighting Baker Mayfields to win this game.
Yeah, I'll take the Bucs too. Not much to add there as well. Another matchup from a couple weeks ago. This time in the West, Seattle heading down to Arizona. Does Arizona pull this one off? Seattle's all of a sudden now in the lead in the West.
I think the Cardinals can definitely win this game, and I'm picking them to win this game. I think, again, kind of the same narrative. They're at home. I think that helps a lot more than what we saw from the Cardinals, not only in Seattle, but they looked competitive against Minnesota. So if they can kind of take that same game plan against Minnesota and bring it back to the Valley of the Sun, bring it out to Glendale, I think they can not easily beat the Seahawks, but, that run-first mentality, Kyler protecting the ball. He got a little too careless with some pretty bad throws in the Minnesota game, but if he can not throw picks and James Conner can, churn out some big yards, I think the Cardinals can punch themselves back up into the first place of the NFC West. So I like the Cardinals at home.
Yeah, I've got Arizona as well. Arizona seems to play better at home than they do on the road this season. So I think they'll win that one. Interesting game here. Buffalo's got to travel all the way across the country and take on the Rams.
It's hard to pick against the Bills right now, and you also have a very excited, newly engaged Josh Allen. He's riding high right now with his engagement to Haley Steinfeld, so congrats to you, Josh, and congrats to continuing on as... Well, that sounds weird. Continuing on as the Bills quarterback, that's not right. But winning as a Bills quarterback, I think the Bills, even though they have to travel across the country, I don't know, something's not right with the Rams. Like, they have the players, they have the personnel. Honestly, they have the coaching. McVay's a good coach, but I don't know if Stafford's just getting old or what's going on, but I like the Bills.
Yeah, I like the Bills too. They feel like they're the hottest team in the AFC at this point. Basically, a team I just don't want to play, and they're just they buzzsawed through San Francisco. I know San Francisco's got their problems, but man, they made that game look really, really easy last Sunday night, and I'm taking them in this one. Chicago now under new management, going to San Francisco. Both teams desperately looking for something positive to happen. Who do you got in this one?
I flipped a coin for this matchup. To me, these are both really depleted teams. One, the Bears are depleted in terms of not having a head coach, and the Niners just cannot catch the injury break. I flipped a coin. It landed on heads, and heads for me was the Niners. So I'm going with the Niners. They're going to have Guarendo at running back. Debo and Kittle are healthy. So to me, just a couple names I can at least still probably squeeze out maybe a win for the Niners. I don't know. This actually could be a good game because both teams are so bad that it's a good game. But I don't know.
Yeah. I think this is actually going to be a good game as well. I think it's going to be kind of a slugfest, kind of a hard one to watch. But I think the Niners pull it out. I think Chicago knows at this point they're pretty much playing for nothing. The Niners, because of the division that they're in, they're still technically in it. I mean, they could make a little run here and make the playoffs, and anything can happen from there. So they're still playing for something. I think Chicago knows they're, especially because of the division they're in, they're pretty buried. But we'll see what this new management does. I mean, Matt Eberflus was awful. I mean, it was a bad situation, and who knows? Maybe the Chicago team looks brand new and things start shining and look great. But for right now, I'm going to take the Niners, even with all their injuries. Sunday Night Football is going to be a good one. Excited to watch this one. Chargers heading to Kansas City. This is always a dogfight.
I want to pick the Chargers so bad, but the Chiefs just somehow always pull it out, minus that one trip to Buffalo. But they're the home team. There's going to be a ball that bounces their way. There's going to be a kick that gets blocked or a last-second kick goes through the upright. I don't know, but I'm picking the Chiefs at home.
Yeah, I got the Chiefs. They're going to somehow find a way to win it in the last 50 seconds. That's my bet on that one. Monday Night Football, kind of a stinker this week, unfortunately. Cincinnati going to Dallas. Granted, if you want to watch this game in Simpsons version, that's how they're showing it on ESPN. No, Disney Plus. So, hey, something different to watch. Watch Homer Simpson dressed up as a cowboy or something. So, it could be entertaining for 5 minutes.
I keep picking the Bengals. I don't know why. I'm picking them to beat the Cowboys. I think they actually win it this week, hopefully. But Burrow and that offense isn't the problem. Their defense is so bad. Burrow's putting up crazy numbers. Chase is having a really good year. They just can't stop anyone. So even if they can't stop the Cowboys are so bad that they'll probably stop themselves. So I like the Bengals on the road.
I've got Dallas. I mean, this could go either way. These are two defenses that are just awful. Could be a fun one to watch, just from the aspect of it. Could be a lot of points, but it's two bad teams. I'll take Dallas. They're home. They looked at least capable against the Giants. Cincinnati.
We might be seeing Trey Lance at quarterback though, so that could change things up a little bit. Would be interesting. But.
Who knows? I mean, Cincinnati feels like it can't stop a chair. So. But let's wrap on the NFL. Let's head on over to college football, and we're in championship week. So these games are really important for playoff, obviously. The bracket's going to be revealed on Sunday. We have a pretty good idea of about 7 of these teams, where we can pretty much lock 8 teams in, I think, at this point, most of the country, that is. We've seen what the rankings are, and these games are going to determine those last 4 spots. But that said, let's jump back to last week. James, I know you have a couple of things you want to talk about. It was a heavy rivalry week. Let's jump into it.
Yeah, we had quite the interesting amount of upsets and flag planting, or a pitchfork if you're ASU. An interesting week for sure. So we got it started out. The big one on Friday was Georgia and Georgia Tech went to 8 overtimes, which was... What's the word I'm looking for? I mean, it was fun. It was fun to watch. I was definitely pulling for Georgia Tech. You always like seeing upsets like that just to screw up the college football playoff. And honestly, Georgia should have lost that game. Like I said, I watched that entire, basically, fourth quarter, about midway through the third quarter and on. So Georgia, they completed the comeback. They go to overtime. There were some calls in overtime that were a little one-sided, it seemed. But, that's how it goes. Georgia hung on and won it. So that was a really, really exciting... 8 overtimes is insane. I think it tied... Or it might have been one less than the record. I think the record was 9. And then moving on into Saturday... and one thing I will say of note, this whole big noon Saturday, I know we've talked about this before. I don't know if it was on the pod or maybe off the podcast, but it's just so bad that you're having games like Ohio State, Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, Ohio State, Indiana at 10 a.m. on a Saturday. I know this is the year that maybe you could do that because Michigan, record-wise, and isn't that great, but we saw whether you call it a good game or not, it was close. If you're into defensive games, you got that. But this was Michigan's fourth straight win over Ohio State. You have Ohio State fans calling for Ryan Day's head. The guy literally beats everyone but Michigan. And Ohio State fans want him out, which I think is hilarious. But I mean, you can't beat your rival and you're not winning national championships. And if he doesn't win it this year, he might be out. So that'll be an interesting storyline to keep an eye on. After the game is where the big headline took place. We saw a fight break out when a Michigan player took a flag from a cheerleader and planted it on the O. And yeah, all hell broke loose. There was people were getting pepper sprayed. It was a mess. And I'll get more into that. I have a question for you later on. We saw South Carolina upset Clemson. South Carolina, you picked that. That was a good pick, and we've talked a lot about South Carolina. They actually have an interesting resume. They're a pretty good team. I don't think they're going to get in. They need a lot to fall their way if they are to squeak in as that 12th team. I doubt it. But they're a good team. They're interesting. And honestly, that didn't really affect Clemson because, as we saw, Clemson is still in the championship game. We saw Notre Dame pretty much, well, not pretty much. They locked in a spot with their win. They don't have a championship game to play in, so no harm, no foul to them this week. We did see a big upset, though. Syracuse knocked off Miami. That was the one a lot of people actually called. I saw a lot of people calling. Did you call? You called that one too.
I called that one too.
Yeah. So Syracuse. I'm gonna give it a most likely. Syracuse most likely knocks Miami out of the playoff. Miami has a better shot, I think, than South Carolina, but again, they're gonna need some things to go their way. We saw Bama win big in the Iron Bowl. I know it was only by like 10, but they pretty much handled Auburn the entire game.
Yep.
Iowa State, we saw get to 10 wins for the first time in school history. So just like Indiana, congrats to Iowa State. That's pretty remarkable to think that it's 2024 and Iowa State has never gotten to 10 wins. Granted, the season's longer now these days, but yeah, major props to them. They're also in a championship game. And that was really it. I didn't really. I mean, Texas beat Texas A&M. A lot of things. SMU held on and won pretty handedly. Those are just kind of my big ones to write down. So here, I'm going to pose you this question, and one that I've heard on multiple podcasts this week. But we had at least the big three that I can think of. You had the fight in the Michigan-Ohio State game. You had ASU basically plant their pitchfork in the center of the U of A field. And then you had North Carolina State planting a flag at UNC. One, I think it's all funny because they can't really do anything with that because it's turf, so it doesn't stick in the ground, so whatever. Anyways, the question I have for you, should flag planting be banned because of what it can lead to and the amount of fights we're seeing break out because of this? I mean, so there's my question for you. Should flag planting be banned? Should people talk more on the field with their play rather? I mean, you're just inducing violence, in my opinion, by great, you won, I get it, you're on the opposing team's field. Do you really need to go plant your flag? You're just going to cause a fight. What do you think? Should it be banned or no?
So, I mean, here's the thing with it. I mean, I think it's pretty stupid, and I'll talk about the Ohio State situation. The Ohio State players seemed more pissed off about the flag being planted than them actually losing the game. I mean, they did not look good throughout the game, and then all of a sudden they got all fired up that happened. I also think there's kind of a bigger issue kind of connected with this. So let's talk about 4 of the 6 teams, and I'll say it's Michigan, the North Carolinas, and Arizona. Those 4 teams, their seasons are either going to a bowl game or their seasons are done. It doesn't matter what the hell actually happens. Who cares if they get suspended? Who cares? It doesn't matter. And even in the Ohio State, Arizona State situation, all the suspensions are basically being controlled by the schools, and but all the players know I'm not going to get suspended for a conference championship or a playoff game. That's not going to happen if I matter. There needs to be some sort of, and this is a lot more than just this flag planting thing. It's a bigger issue. There needs to be a commissioner or a committee that's overseeing these things because you're seeing stupid stuff like this happen, especially this week, but throughout the season, there's these stupid fights and there's these stupid things that happen where the school shouldn't be able to control it. Like, I remember even with Oregon when they played Ohio State holding, number one receiver, they're number one, he's the two receiver, but he's number one, spit in someone's face. And then Oregon suspended him for one game, but it was Purdue. It was like, who cares? Like, it doesn't even matter.
Right.
And it was like a throwaway. And like these guys just kind of get, and with NIL and the amount of money that's getting tossed around, and the fact that these guys are jumping from school to school, I bet you anything, half the guys that were in these flag planting scuffles won't even be at the university they're playing at this next year. So it's like, it's a reason to like get in a scuffle, get in a fight, be like, kind of look like a thug, kind of look dumb, and I think the whole thing is just so stupid and just, I don't know. I know in the Arizona State situation, the dude that planted it actually played at Arizona. It's like, this is stupid stuff.
Yeah, I don't quite get it. I mean, nothing good can come from it. There's you can be a sore loser. I think not a lot of people talk about sore winning,
Yeah.
but to me it's like, great, you won the game. Like, why continue to rub it in? You don't see this in professional football.
No.
You do not see this in the NBA. I mean, could you imagine it? Not that you can do it in the NBA, it's a court, but we have seen it. I remember there was the Kyrie incident with the Boston logo.
Yeah.
But that got qualmed pretty quickly. But could you imagine if that's what occurred and Lakers Celtics are playing and LeBron spits on the the logo at center court? I mean, it's just like, why? I don't know. To me, it's like
And it's one
there's no
thing
need to do that.
Yeah, and for me, the only two guys that really come to mind over the last 15 years that were really like over the top with their celebrations and taunting and stuff like that, there's really two, and they both come out of the same zone. And that was Johnny Manziel, and it was Baker Mayfield. They were really the only two, but the years that they were doing it, they were also winning Heismans.
Yeah, Baker, honestly, I don't want to say he started flag planting, but it almost seemed like he kind of rejuvenated it and brought it back in recent years he did it to Texas, and that was, Texas did not like that.
No.
But yeah, I don't know. And then I even look like overseas, like although, soccer is taken so seriously overseas to the point where, like, one, players don't really do that to other teams, and not that fans ever get involved, especially like, the Michigan, Ohio State. It's not like the fans were involved by any means, but like, I look at, there's entrances for visiting fans at stadiums so they don't have to interact with the home fans, because there has been stuff that's gone on in the past, like the whole hooligan stuff in England. So it's like, okay, you're doing that with the fans. Why not, like, right after the game, have people on the field to control these 18, 19, 20-year-old kids from doing stupid stuff? Because it's just a bad look to just see, like, okay, the game's over, but now the teams are fighting. Like, get over it. One of you guys won, one of you guys lost. Go back and celebrate in your locker room if you won. If you lost, you should have shown more effort on the field. Don't then fight them because they're planting a flag at, the 50-yard line. Like, get over it. I mean, I get that it's an ego thing. You don't want your home turf to get messed up, or you don't want your rival planting that flag at the 50. But I don't know. I'm not saying it should be banned per se, but maybe just, I mean, it's hard to tell college kids to use better judgment because we've been in college and when you're
Yeah.
18, 19 years old. You don't really have judgment, but I don't know. I think it's just a bad look.
I mean, I also think it's really dumb. Just it's not like the olden days where a kid will be there for 4 years and that's the school they're at and they have all this pride. As I talked about before, a third of those guys are not even going to be on that team next year because
Oh yeah, they'll
a bunch of
transfer or
them,
go to the NFL or
a bunch of them have already hit the transfer portal. They're already gone. It's just like it's just how it works these days. I mean, I don't mean to be the no fun police. The other thing I would get rid of real quick and find a way to get rid of it. I hate the trampling on the field when you win a game. I hate like everyone rushing on the field. I think it's the dumbest thing. That's just me. Especially when it's like, I mean, I get ASU hasn't won anything in a very long time, but ASU beating BYU, ASU was favored in that game, and they ran the field.
and they were both ranked. Like I get it was an upset in terms of like BYU is a higher ranked team, but
Yeah,
yeah, like you said, they were favored.
like I don't love it, but
Yeah.
like I get it with Syracuse beating Miami, like completely unranked, beating a number 6 team, biggest win in a long time. I get that. I don't think it's great, but like when it's like, oh, it's like we're one team's 15, the other team's 18, and you rush the field, dumb, just dumb.
Right.
So
And like I understand Iowa State, that was their 10th win,
yeah,
and their team's going to the
champion, yeah,
Big 12
Big 12,
championship. Like
yeah.
it wasn't like I mean, I don't think it was an upset, right? Because Kansas State would have been. Were they ranked ahead of Iowa State?
Iowa State, I think, was ranked. I think Iowa State was
Were
favored.
they ranked? So
Yeah,
yeah. So like in that instance, it's like it wasn't really because it wasn't because they upset Kansas State, but I can sort of see it. It's like all right, 10 wins in team history, first time ever,
yeah,
and you're pumped up as a fan because you're going to the Big 12 championship game. Great, but yeah, I don't know. I had an argument with Ashley about this because she is anti-storming of anything, basketball, football. She thinks it should never happen ever. I'm not anti. I mean, I don't like love it,
mm.
but I think you have to kind of, as a fan, know when it's appropriate to do it.
She's a
So
Kansas
yeah,
fan
that's
now.
another good.
I mean, her being a Kansas fan, there's been
Oh
no
yeah,
reason for her to actually ever run anything.
no, because basketball they're
For
always
one,
number one and
yeah.
they win. In
In
football,
football, they've never won
you know,
anything. So,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
So, all right. Well, that being said, let's jump into championship week. We got 6 matchups that have playoff implications. So, we're gonna jump right into it. We're gonna start on Friday night, the American Conference. Probably the least important, but who knows? It may grow importance later on. Unranked Tulane taking on number 24 Army. Who do you got?
I'm actually picking Army in this game. I know Tulane is favored. Army has one loss, right? And that's
Yep.
to Notre Dame.
Yep.
And they have a really good quarterback in Bryson Daly. And honestly, I haven't seen Tulane play. They must obviously be pretty good. They're ranked like 17 or whatever they are ranked, but
Oh, they
and
fell out.
they have an opportunity. What are they?
They fell out. They're not ranked.
Oh, did they fall out?
Yeah.
Oh, they lost to Memphis, didn't they?
Yeah, they lost Mousely to Memphis. They were 17 and they dropped out completely.
That's okay. That's right. They were 17 last. I must have been looking at
Yeah.
last week. Well, anyway, regardless, Tulane must be a pretty good team. But I think that Army triple option, I think they get it done. So I'm picking. I like Army.
Yeah, I like Army as well. A lot of the same things that you said. I'd be feeling a lot differently if Tulane had beaten Memphis. It would be a lot more interesting. But the fact of the matter is they've fallen out of the college football, the top 25, making it a little bit harder of a path. But there is a path. It's just a little less likely. We'll jump over to the Mountain West, playing at the same time as that American Championship game, 6 o'clock Eastern on Friday. Number 20, UNLV, taking on number 10, Boise State. These two teams played each other earlier in the year in Las Vegas. Boise State won that game. This game will be played in Boise, though, on the blue turf.
Yeah, I'll be tuned into this one. Nothing against Tulane and Army, but anytime I can have a chance to watch Genty play, he's so fun. I'm picking Boise State here. I think it will be another close game. UNLV's impressed me a lot. I know way back, I don't know what week it would have been, 3 or 4, but we had talked about the UNLV quarterback
Yeah,
uh,
bailing.
leaving
Yeah,
basically due to NIL reasons, and we kind of thought that was a dagger for them way back then. But they've only lost what 1 or 2 games themselves, and they have a really good offensive coordinator, a guy who's being looked at for a head coaching job or even another offensive coordinator positions at bigger schools. So don't count out yet UNLV. Unfortunately, they just have to go up against the best running back in college football. So even when Genti seems to be having a bad day for him is 120, 150 yards and a touchdown. But then he has it seems like any play he can just break one. He's had multiple games with 2+ touchdowns. Maybe not multiple, but a couple games with 3+ touchdowns. I mean, the guy's an absolute beast. He's going to be the number one running back taken in the draft. I'm taking Boise State here.
yeah. I'm going to take Boise State as well. I also kind of got them locked in for that first round bye at this point. I think they'll take the fourth spot in the bat buys, but I think they win. I think it is closer than we all think. It's going to be single digits. My big question off of this game is, will Barry Odom, head coach at UNLV, stay at UNLV? He's done a hell of a job at this school in 2 years. There's going to be a spot that's open. He's been probably, in my opinion, the best mid-major head coach these past 2 years. And we've seen what I just blanked on his name. Indiana coach has done coming over from James Madison. Um, kind of the same thing. Barry Odom is going to take one of these big jobs, and I can see him being very good wherever he may go next. I don't think he's going to stay at UNLV very long. But to wrap that up, I think Boise State wins. I think it's close. Genti takes over, and they lock in the fourth seed of the bracket, in my opinion. Jumping over to Saturday, Big 12. This is pretty much a winner gets in, losers out. Number 16, Iowa State, taking on number 15, Arizona State. And I think this probably gets the 12 seed.
Yeah, absolutely hate having to do this as an Arizona Wildcat fan, but I actually like ASU in this game. Cam Skattebo, probably the second best running back in the nation. I don't know what his NFL prospects will be like. He seems like one of those Toby Gerhart kind of guys, like really good in college. I don't know if he's got what it takes to do what he does in college in the NFL. Maybe I'll be wrong and be eating my words, but he's really good. And ASU in general, I think, has had just a really good year. Dillingham has been playing really well. One thing to note, though, is I did see the other day their leading receiver is out indefinitely, which is never good. So I think they're going to have to really rely on the run game. Their quarterback, who they got from Michigan State, has also been a really good, transfer, and he's stepped in right away to be, obviously one of the better quarterback starters I think in the country for what ASU's done. Because no one had ASU even,
Yeah.
let alone being in the Big 12 championship, having an opportunity at the playoff. I mean, they were picked to be bottom of the barrel Big 12. So, yeah, I hate to do it, but I'm picking ASU to win.
Yeah, I've got ASU as well. I don't have much to add. Um, yeah, I think they're going to get in. They'll be the 12th seed and probably very well playing the loser of the Oregon Penn State game or Notre Dame, one of those. But cool to see an old Pac-12 team like that have success. But I think ASU wins in that one. SEC championship, number 5 Georgia taking on number 2 Texas. This is a rematch from a few months or about a month back where Georgia just killed Texas. This one will be played in Georgia's backyard. Who do you got here?
Well, and that's the reason I'm picking Georgia. I think it's just a little too close to home. Texas fans travel. I mean, I don't know if it'll be 50-50, but, there will be a lot of Texas fans there. it'll just help. Georgia knows that stadium like the back of their hand. It seems like they play there all the time,
Yeah.
whether it's an SEC championship game or some kind of special event game or whatever. But I don't think Georgia destroys Texas, but I don't know. I just think Georgia will beat them again. Texas is really good, and they finally proved it, and their defense finally proved it against Texas A&M. I'm just still not sold 100% on Texas. They're not bad,
Yeah.
obviously. They're the number 2 team in the country, but they just, other than A&M, they just don't have many good wins. And like you said, Georgia smashed them last time. I think it'll be much closer, but I like Georgia to win this game.
Yeah, I completely agree. I have nothing really to add. I can't remember the last time Georgia lost in Atlanta. I'm going to take Georgia. Yeah, I don't have much to add to that one. ACC Championship, Clemson, number 17, going and taking on number 8, SMU. This is an interesting one, and this one could be the one that steals a bid.
I like SMU here. Clemson has had a very weird season. They kind of fell into this
Yeah.
championship game because of Syracuse beating Miami. I don't know. I just haven't quite really seen it out of Clemson. SMU seems really strong. So I like SMU winning this game and then maybe even doing some work in the playoff. They're SMU to me, they are the best ACC team. Like
Yeah.
if they played Miami, I think I still would have picked SMU to win. So, yeah, I'm going with SMU.
Yeah, I really wanted to take Clemson. I tried to find any reason to take Clemson, and I just couldn't find it. They may win, but SMU on paper, and from what I've seen, especially over these last few weeks, they're just a better team. Their one loss comes to BYU when BYU had everything humming, and they didn't have the SMU didn't have their starting quarterback playing that game. So it's tough to pick anyone but SMU in this one. So I just have to do it. And the last one, Big Ten championship, number 1 Oregon taking on number 3 Penn State.
I'm picking Oregon. I'm going to toss this one back over to you to let you go dive deep into Oregon. They're your team. The only thing I will say, I don't like Penn State at all. I think they're overrated. They have literally beat no one, and they lost to Ohio State. They beat Illinois. To me, that's their season right there in a nutshell. They have one loss. I don't know. I just don't see it out of Penn State. But I'll throw it over to you for way more insight because this is your
Yeah,
wheelhouse with Oregon.
I'm not going to go terribly deep into it, but I think Oregon wins. I think it's going to be closer than we all think. I don't really have a lot to say on this one. I think Penn State's I give Penn State a little bit more credit than you do. I do think the Big Ten, especially in that middle, from like teams 5 through like 15, were all very average. So a lot of these wins that happened were just very mediocre. I mean, I'm still kind of out on the jury on how good is Ohio State. But Oregon, when Oregon's clicking, Oregon looks like they're the best team in the country. Their defense looks like they are the best in the country. They are deeper than any other team. They've had games this season where they have actually not looked very good and still won by 20. So that said, I just feel like Oregon's playing on a very, very high level, and hopefully they continue doing it going into Indianapolis. The only thing that scares me is just there is a history with Oregon football that they get into these championship games and they're supposed to win these games and then they just don't show up and it just looks bad. Let's just hope that doesn't happen because there's a lot on the line on this one. Getting that first seed is very different than getting the 5 or the 6 seed in this playoff, and I wish it was structured differently. It's the only criticism I have of this playoff is I wish it was just the top 4 teams got the byes, and the 5 automatic. They just get slotted wherever. I'm cool with the 5 automatic bids, but the fact of the matter is, what we saw in this past committee selection, show. It's we get the 1 seed, the 2 seed, the 8 seed, and the 12 seed getting buys. It's just weird, and especially in this case where basically you can argue, you know, 4 of the best 5 teams, especially, are all coming from 2 conferences. It also screws Notre Dame, in my opinion. I think Notre Dame's fine hosting a home game again, I guess, but Notre Dame is clearly, in my opinion, a top 4 team and should be one of the 4 teams getting a bye. But hopefully Oregon shows up and they win the Big Ten championship. It would be a great way to start the first season. But they got a lot of talent and they can run the ball, and they got their defense is I always the term I've been using is looks like an SEC defense. So. Yep.
Well, that might be it. Those are the at least the big championship games that matter.
Yeah, there's a few.
And like I said to start.
Sorry, go for it.
Oh, go ahead.
I said there's a few others.
I was just gonna say that. I was just gonna say that. Remind everyone that we will be splitting up. We'll have just an NFL show next week, and then obviously when the week before the first playoff.
Yep.
We'll do a show as well, just to kind of split it up. But
yep.
Anyways, that's all I was going to say. Give it back to you.
Yeah, I think that's all we got. Is there anything you want to add?
Oh, man. I don't think so. No, not really. It's been a interesting week for Arizona football. Brent Brennan's getting a lot of hate. So, yeah, I don't know. They might be in for a hell of a rebuild.
Yeah.
Which is something I did not think was going to be the case going into this season. So, yeah, poor Arizona. Sucks, but I'm used to it. So, I'm excited for some good NFL and college football playoffs, though.
Yep. All right, guys. Well, we'll jump in next week. And, guys, watch football. And we will be back next week.